Welcome in. Spurs have just beaten West Ham 2-0, and we're going to get to that game just a little bit later on, but we'll be talking mainly about Manchester United at the top of today's show. My name's Kay Murray, Janusz Mihajlik and Rob Dawson here with us. Let's get into Manchester United's latest win, guys. Janusz, I know many already think it is a three-horse race when it comes to the title race in the Premier League, but surely anyone who was doubting it, their mind has to have been changed this weekend, given the way we've seen it go.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you and I have been talking about this. We've been saying this for a while. I just thought that when Man City beat Arsenal, maybe there wouldn't be a response from Arsenal. But in terms of Manchester United, I think we've seen throughout. I mean, in every competition, what they're doing, amazing what has been done so far by Ten Hag, and even in today's game. I want to almost say single-handedly changes the game with some of the adjustments that he's made at halftime.
Yeah, and just getting into it, Rob, I mean, it's hard to even not bring him up as soon as we do. Marcus Rashford is in the absolute form of his life right now. Breaking records himself, everything's looking good, and even getting taken off because it's a massive week ahead for him too.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, in the form of his life. I mean, we've never really seen him in this kind of goal-scoring form ever since he broke onto the scene as a teenager. I mean, he's had flashes of this under different managers where he's kind of gone 2 or 3 games and 4 games with a goal in each, but nothing really like this. I think it's 16 in 17 games now since the World Cup. And his confidence is so high. And even today, the ball falls to him against Leicester. And in the past, possibly you would have expected him to maybe rush the finish and snatch at it a little bit, or maybe even try to pass to someone else. But there's no doubt these days when he goes through in situations like that he's going to A, shoot, and B, score. He's just that confident. And you talk about sort of title challenges and United being involved in the title race, and Marcus Rashford's form is one of the reasons why United definitely are in the title race. If he keeps scoring, there's no real reason why United can't sort of challenge Man City and Arsenal at the top of the league. And also, it puts Marcus Rashford in the race for those top individual honours as well. I mean, he really is playing that well that you could possibly see at the end of the season that he's been named, Premier League and PFA Player of the Year.
Yeah, just talking about him and just sticking with you a minute, Rob, because after the game, Erik Ten Hag brought up the fact that Marcus Rashford's contract is a priority right now. And it's hard to disagree, right?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly has to be. I mean, the way the contract has been organised in the past, that they've bought themselves a bit of leeway, Man United, with triggering his options. So it's not that it's a really pressing matter right now. They've still got him till 2024, but a player of his age in this kind of form, it really needs to be sorted very, very quickly. And there's a lot of stuff going on with the takeover and maybe uncertainty at Old Trafford. But even despite all that, really the owners, even if they're not going to be there very long, the management, they need to sort this out as quickly as possible, because with each passing week, with each passing goal, his value just increases. And if he keeps scoring and the contract situation drags on for much longer, that Europe's top clubs, if they're not already, will be circling. The likes of Real Madrid, Paris Saint-Germain. He's a name that will be at the top of their wish list because he's playing that well at the moment.
Why wouldn't the top teams be looking at him right now, Janusz, and trying to entice him away?
Yeah, they could. I hope he doesn't. I'm shocked that he hasn't asked me if he's the best in the world right now as a striker. Because my answer would be yes and no, and the reason is that I would say no is because I don't want to box him in. And today, again, a great example of that. He scored as a central striker and scored as a winger. And we've talked about the fact that I still think that Manchester United need a top number 9 because for that reason, because I think Rashford is comfortable playing in those 2 positions, and I don't think he needs any pressure to be just a number 9 and take the hits and hope that he's going to deliver 23, 24 goals at all times. So I mean, it's tremendous. I think teams are going to be looking at him for for different reasons. The thing with Rashford that I like, and the reason that some of the big teams may look for him, is that he's one of those players that, his goals are not just tap-ins. He works hard for his goals. And I don't want to give you the cliche that the sort of talk that he's capable of going wide, scores with his left, right, in the air and all that. I just think that he kind of knows how to find himself in front of goal. And that's not always easy. And as I've said, sometimes he arrives just at the right time from deeper positions as well. That's why I value him a lot.
Janusz, is there anyone that sticks out to you when you think about a kind of striker that you'd like to see alongside Marcus Rashford?
Oh no, I mean, no, I don't have an answer for that for you at this moment. Again, I mean, they're fine where they are, but there's zero question that if Manchester United are going to be at the top of the game, both in Europe and in the Premier League consistently now, they need somebody that's going to take those hits, I think. And obviously that player has to score goals as well. But at the moment, I don't have a name for you. Apologies.
No, no worries. But seeing as though you were bringing up the word best, I just wanted to bring up this stat to you, Rob, because I want to see where he compares to some United legends right now. He scored in each of his last 7 Premier League home games. That's consecutive goals for him at Old Trafford. The only players who scored more than him in this aspect was Wayne Rooney and Cristiano Ronaldo. Is he on his way to becoming a name like that for Manchester United?
I mean, that's a great question. That is what we've all been expecting him to become ever since he broke onto the scene. He was so good when he came on into the first team as a teenager that we've all been expecting this to happen at some stage. I think he's 25 now. It's maybe taken a little bit longer possibly than lots of people expected. But even during the World Cup, Erik ten Hag said, unprompted, that he thought that he could be as good as Kylian Mbappe. And at the time, people raised their eyebrows a little bit, saying, well, Mbappe's won World Cups. He's been at the latter stages of the Champions League. He scores, volumes and volumes of goals for PSG. And maybe, Rashford isn't ready to be talked about in that category. But since the World Cup, the goals he scored, I mean, I think Ten Hag has been proved right. And as I say, we've all kind of been waiting for Marcus Rashford to join that next level of elite forward. You have to score an awful lot of goals and influence big games if you're going to be mentioned alongside the likes of Mbappe and Neymar and Harry Kane, players like that. But since the World Cup, Marcus Rashford's certainly done that. And you only had to look at a couple of days ago in Barcelona, a really big game away from home in a hostile atmosphere in Camp Nou, and Rashford has still managed to score one, assist one. He really is at the moment that good.
I've got a little question for you then here, Jan. I've got a couple actually. Would you rather have Mbappe or Rashford in your team when you think of the ego factor?
Well, I don't know either, but I don't know if Mbappe has a massive ego. I think if you look all around, I think if you watch today, I happen to look at PSG and Lille. I mean, Mbappe was sensational. We saw what he did in Europe the other day. I still think, in terms of pure talent, his pace, ability to basically win the game by himself, I still think Mbappe is a better player than Marcus Rashford.
So let me ask you this then, Rob, because obviously since the World Cup, you just mentioned a few names and even like Harry Kane. Is Marcus Rashford the most important player for Manchester United right now? And if he's not, what's the power rankings?
Yeah, I mean, he has to be up there. I would say Casemiro is another one. Obviously, they've won today without him, but if you take Casemiro out of that team for a long period of time, I think that United would suffer quite a lot. Lisandro Martinez has been fantastic at the back alongside Rafael Varane this season, and even today, David de Gea made 2 incredible saves with the game at 0-0 and allowed Man United to go on and win the game. If you'd asked me this a month ago, I'd have said Casemiro is by far United's most important player. But the form that Rashford is in, and the fact that United have survived a little bit the last couple of games with Casemiro being suspended, I would say that Marcus Rashford probably is Man United's most important player, because ultimately no one else is really scoring goals. And that's fine if Marcus Rashford is scoring every week, because it doesn't really matter where the goals come from. As long as someone's putting the ball in the net, it doesn't really matter. But at the moment, United have showed that they can possibly cope without Casemiro, because they have done. If you take Marcus Rashford's goals out of the team for the last couple of weeks, United certainly don't win the games and pick up the points that they have done. So in terms of the next month going forward, with the schedule as busy as it is, I think that Erik ten Hag, he would never admit this to us publicly, but I think Erik ten Hag, if you offered him the chance of, if he had to take one of Casemiro or Marcus Rashford out of the team, I think grudgingly he would probably take Casemiro out.
What do you think, Janis?
Well, I mean, absolutely. I can't disagree with all those names. I think, there's some key players that have been mentioned, and without them, I don't think we see Manchester United as we do right now. But for me, by far, the most important player in this team is Bruno Fernandes. Look, I mean, for me, he's been as good a signing as anyone in the history of Manchester United. I really, truly mean it. And some big names. I know I'm going on the ledge here with that statement, because there's so many great players in the history of Manchester United. But if you look at what Bruno has done, and by the way, Bruno's been doing this consistently, even when United were terrible in the last couple of seasons. He was the one player that's always kind of drove this team as well. And even at their worst, he was clearly one of those players that was best on the pitch as well. So, we saw obviously, the setup today and I think on the first goal with the outside of his foot and then the tiki-taka with Sancho. I just think that he's such a consistent player, such a leader on this team. And I don't remember him playing bad games. I mean, even if he's not at his best, there's always one or two or three things that he does, even defensively, because I don't think we give him credit for that as well, because in terms of recovery of the balls, he's probably up there. I didn't look at those statistics, but I have to imagine that he is. So that one, and I think it's been mentioned by Rob as well, De Gea. Because how many times have we sacked De Gea, right? And we have this funny thing with goalkeepers. We tend to write off the best in the world. I even remember, Jan Oblak at Atleti, when he was the best in the world, had a bad season last year. Even Manuel Neuer's been bad in his career as well. And you can probably go on with Casillas and everybody else. Once you're a great goalkeeper, chances are that you're going to stay a great goalkeeper. It may take you a season because that happens to everybody, but it's such a fragile position. And the reason, of course, we're talking about De Gea that early on, I mean, he made 2 stops, I think, on Harvey Barnes and Iheanacho that were absolutely incredible. I mean, one or both go in, and who knows where this game would wind up. But it's a fragile position because if you make a mistake, of course, unlike a field player, chances are, most likely than not, nobody can save you.
Yeah, it's obviously so important, as you just mentioned, Janish, in the first half. David De Gea today, Rob, and also a special day for him in that he equalled Peter Schmeichel's 180 clean sheet record. How do you rate him since he joined the club, De Gea?
I mean, I think he's probably been Man United's most important player of the last decade. We talked about some great players just then. Marcus Rashford and Casemiro and players. Obviously United have signed and had great players play for them the last decade. But if you take the last decade as a whole, De Gea is by far the most important player that United have had. And as mentioned there, they've had some very lean seasons and very poor seasons. If it hadn't been for David De Gea in some of those seasons, it would have been even worse. He has performed consistently. Barring a little bit of a shaky spell when he first joined in 2011, he's performed consistently all the way through his Man United career. I think he's won the club's Player of the Year award 4 or 5 times, and that just shows you how important he's been. We spoke to him in the summer actually when we were on tour, and he said that he doesn't want to win the club's Player of the Year award anymore because it means that United have had a bad season. He's had too many shots to face and too many saves to make. He doesn't want to be sort of mentioned in those terms anymore because he wants to win trophies. And when your goalkeeper is busy, the team isn't usually winning games and winning trophies. But if you take the last decade as a single entity to look at, he's been absolutely fantastic for United. He's been by far United's most important player, most impressive player since Sir Alex Ferguson retired in 2013.
Just talking about players as well today, obviously it's a player that's much more new when it comes to United. But Jadon Sancho today, Janish, what did you make of him? Good to see him on the score sheet again?
Yeah, good in different position. That brings us nicely to the whole idea of halftime and Ten Hag again, right? Because he's making players better. And Jadon Sancho, we knew it's been a slow start from his days in Bundesliga, but that's Ten Hag for you. So the adjustments that were needed, we've mentioned Rashford, and I think to a degree we were surprised. But here's Ten Hag again, flexible and very intelligent. I think, putting Sancho inside, allow obviously Rashford to go wide and use the space a little bit. All of that was probably made also because if you remember in the first half, I think Tete and Castagne were incredible. I mean, Luke Shaw and in particular Garnacho struggled with them. I mean, Tete had the run of the place. And so I think decision was made that maybe Jadon Sancho probably defensively, I'm not saying that he's bad, but he's not great. Rashford would have been better for that. And again, everything worked perfectly for him. So here's Jadon Sancho playing in a position that, of course, he plays, but not often, taking full advantage of that, coming off the bench. And in the second half, was just one-way traffic. You look at Tete and Castagne, non-existent. And Jadon Sancho also obviously scoring a great goal through a great build-up that started with Lisandro Martinez winning that tackle in the midfield. So, I mean, firing on all cylinders. And it's good because I think we've been waiting for that from Jadon Sancho, haven't we?
Yeah, it is good. Even when Ten Hag was asked afterwards about Rashford, he did highlight some of those players that, as he's saying, are also helping Rashford and helping the team. And he did pick Jadon Sancho out. So, Rob, it's a massive week ahead. How does Ten Hag manage this right, and how does he prioritise it? They've got that Europa League second leg with Barcelona. That first game we all saw, it was brilliant. And then there's the Carabao Cup final.
I think he just picks his strongest team for Barcelona on Thursday because it's the next game. I mean, it's a perfectly valid question. And actually, we asked Ten Hag in Barcelona about how he's going to navigate these two games with Barcelona, plus the game against Leicester today and the Carabao Cup final. Half of us actually expect him to say, well, we may prioritise the league and the Carabao Cup and maybe make changes for the Europa League, because Europa League at the moment, the way the season is going, is not as important as it perhaps was at the start of the season, because they're in such a great position in the race for the top four and have a cup final to look forward to. And he shot us all down and said, no, you're wrong. That's not what we're going to do. We're going to play a very strong team in Barcelona. We're going to try and win that game, and then we're going to see who we've got available for Leicester on Sunday, and we're going to move forward doing exactly the same with each passing game. And I think it would be very tempting to look at that second leg against Barcelona and maybe make a few changes and play a stronger team in the Carabao Cup final, a first chance to win a trophy under his reign. But he certainly won't do that. He's going to play a very strong team against Barcelona to try and go through in the Europa League, hope that everyone comes through unscathed, and then try and pick another strong team in the Carabao Cup final. And that may come back to bite him, because you've got a Newcastle side who obviously had a disappointing result this weekend against Liverpool, but have got an entirely free week to prepare for their cup final against United. And United have got a massive game against a great side on Thursday against Barcelona, before they prepare for Wembley. But Ten Hag isn't looking at it like that. He's just going to try and win the game against Barcelona and then go and try and win the game against Newcastle with the strongest sides he has available.
Is that the right approach from the coach, Janis, or is he taking a risk there?
No, I think they're at a level that right now it doesn't matter. I mean, everything's working absolutely perfectly, right? I mean, all of a sudden, look at United team in a few months, and they're 2 or 3 deep in every position, right? Casemiro is going to come back, so that's a natural rotation. What a great leader to have against Barcelona. Obviously suspended here in the league. Sabitzer kind of walked into this and looks the par. I mean, I'm not saying he's great, but I think he's contributing nicely. You have a nice rotation with Dalot and Wan-Bissaka, who didn't play this game. I just have to imagine that, and Rob would know that much better, but not long ago, I mean, going to Old Trafford was a chore, wasn't it? I mean, nobody wanted to do it. Ronaldo notwithstanding, right? And the whole thing around that. Now I have to imagine that tomorrow morning, once again, everybody's there, probably not hour and a half or 2 hours before, but maybe even 3 hours, because they all want to play. They all feel it. And I think, I don't know what priorities may be for them, because out of nowhere, they're contenders for the title as well, but they haven't won a trophy in a while. So I think they'll go after that. And if you eliminate Barcelona in the process, who themselves are in a good run of form, at least in La Liga, and they're at the top, I don't think it matters. There's going to be a rotation, as I've mentioned, that's natural, and everybody's going to be ready for Wembley as well. So almost really, I mean, I've been in those situations, not that at this level, but when things go your way and everybody's contributing, and it seems to me that everybody is relatively happy, and everybody's getting a chance to play, by the way, right? I mean, even Harry Maguire got a bit of a look there the other day. So I don't think it matters. It really doesn't. I think they'll play the best team for Barcelona, and he'll play some of the same players in the final, because if they do get through that, imagine the confidence levels.
What are the actual optimism levels on the red side of Manchester right now, Rob? Just overall for the team and how they're doing.
They haven't been as high as this at any point during the last 10 years since Alex Ferguson retired. There have been flashes under Louis van Gaal and Jose Mourinho and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, where maybe fans thought that things were heading in the right direction, and possibly there was quite a bright future, but nothing like this. It's Ten Hag being in charge. It's the players firing on all cylinders. It's Ten Hag making players like Marcus Rashford better. It's also the prospect of having new owners, and the Glazer family, who they've hated for the best part of 20 years on their way out. It's everything is combined to kind of lift the entire club at the moment, the fan base. And you even saw Ten Hag today after the game walking off down the tunnel, trying to lift the fans, pointing at the fans either side of the tunnel to try and lift them and make more noise. At the moment, everything that he touches is turning to gold. And if that carries on, United are in for a fantastic season.
Rob, I'm just going to pick out a few of the fixtures ahead in the Premier League. You've got Liverpool, Southampton, Brighton, Newcastle, Everton, Forest, Chelsea, Spurs. Is there any looking ahead like that? Are there any fixtures that they're looking at thinking, okay, there could be a little bit of a banana skin or a bump in the road there?
Yeah, I mean that's a tough run of games. I think it's very interesting though that because of the Carabao Cup final, the United aren't going to play another league game now. So I think it's the 5th of March, that Liverpool game away at Anfield. In the meantime, it's possible that City and Arsenal may drop points. If United were then to go to Liverpool and win, all this talk about are United possibly in a title race will have to be put in the bin, because they'll be front and centre in the title race. They'll be right there, right in the mix, and fancy the chances of going and overhauling Arsenal. It's almost like they've been given, because of the Carabao Cup and the Europa League and the FA Cup, a little bit of a break in the Premier League where City and Arsenal are going to have to play. It's their job now to go through this little spell without dropping points. And then United will restart against Liverpool at Anfield. And as I say, if they were to go there and win that game, a place that they found it very, very difficult over the last few years, Ten Hag is still trying to deny that United are in the title race. Well, he won't be able to do that for much longer, particularly if they go to Liverpool and win.
Is he right to be doing that though, Janis, to not be getting caught up in that title talk right now and keep the focus on just getting each game won under his belt?
Yeah, I mean, that's almost impossible to look that far. I mean, you have Barcelona and you have Cup final this week. I mean, even if he tried, I mean, it's probably the furthest thing in his mind right now to think what may happen at Liverpool or Brighton or Southampton. I mean, look, I mean, they'll probably drop points somewhere here or there. I mean, it's imagined, it happens to everybody. We've seen it. We've seen it at Arsenal. We see it even at Manchester City in a game that they should have won easily 3 or 4-0. So that's going to probably happen. It's the reaction. But we're in the business end of the season right now. Everybody has something to play for, right? I mean, that mid-table thing that we used to say that you're almost on the beach almost doesn't exist, because almost everybody can go down and almost everybody can kind of at least dream of Europe, right? I mean, if you look at teams like Brentford and Fulham and even Brighton, I mean, normally they may be dreaming, but reality usually tells them that it's impossible. So I don't think I think coaches do that at times, but I don't think Ten Hag will have time for that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. So what's your thoughts then on the week ahead, Rob? Do you think that they can go through in the Europa League and win the Carabao Cup if you were to hedge your bets on it?
I think so. I wasn't confident that United would get through against Barcelona ahead of the first leg, but the way they played over there, the way they took the game to Barcelona, a team who were at the top of La Liga and clear at the top and looked like they're going to become Spanish champions, I thought was very, very impressive. It's even though they drew 2 each, I think it was probably one of the most impressive performances over the entire season. So I would fancy them at home to beat anyone. The home record under Ten Hag has been absolutely fantastic. I think the last time they lost at home was September to Real Sociedad in the Europa League. So Barcelona will not fancy going to Old Trafford at all. And then you've got a massive cup final against Newcastle at Wembley on Sunday. It's going to be a massively charged occasion because Newcastle have waited so long for their own chance, and they're desperate for a trophy as well. But I just think the way things are going for Man United at the moment, they're on this roll that they've built up some momentum. They've got into this fantastic rhythm of winning games, and 3 days later starting again and winning that game as well. I just think that Barcelona and Newcastle will probably find that too much, and that United will end the week having gone through in the Europa League and Ten Hag lifting a first trophy of his United career.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Thanks so much for being with us, Rob Dawson. We'll no doubt see you again on the show very soon.
Thanks, guys.
All right, Janis, let's talk a little bit about the other game then, the game that came afterwards. It was Spurs against West Ham. What stood out to you from this clash? And then I'll get into some of the bones of it with you.
Well, at first, I mean, I was looking at Spurs in the first half, and again, you kind of say a little bit uninspired in a way. Ultimately, they found a way, and it may be a coincidence, who knows? But I think Spurs are a little bit more expensive without Antonio Conte. And Conte, it's easy to go to that, right? You look at them against Manchester City when Conte was not on the bench, and I thought they were expensive. They weren't as pragmatic, and same situation throughout the game in this one as well. I just think that even when they scored a goal, I don't know if you got that sense, Kay, but they went after it. They went for the second. They went for the kill rather than being pragmatic, which I think that sometimes Conte does. He gets that goal home or away. It's not that Spurs been tremendous in terms of style, home or away, but in particular home, I think they were disappointing. Today was a little bit different, and that second goal, Hyun Minsan coming on the pitch and scoring immediately, reunited. I know it was brief for him to be dropped, but with Harry Kane, and that worked. So again, Spurs are funny because, based on what I've seen, it doesn't look they should be up there, but they're in the 4th spot and ahead of this game, or at least in the first half. They were almost blah. It's almost as if they were in, like, I don't know, 8th or 9th place in the Premier League. So, that's the part that I don't really understand truly about this team, because they don't play with that sort of urgency that says, hey, I mean, you need to get into the Champions League again at the very least.
All right. So seeing as though you've mentioned top 4, which, yes, they rightfully are in the top 4 spot right now. After seeing Liverpool's win yesterday, I put to Stevie Nicol, like, why not top 4 for Liverpool? It might not have been the best season with them, but surely they can catch up now, because ahead of them, are you really that confident in any of those other teams managing to secure that top 4 spot? Let's say that Arsenal, City and Manchester United are dead certs for the top 3. Let's just say that. Who's taking that 4th spot for you?
Well, at least there's hope with Liverpool now. I mean, just a couple of weeks ago, there wasn't any. I mean, Van Dijk obviously coming back. I didn't see exactly with Darwin Núñez in his shoulder, right? I mean, I don't know exactly if he's going to be missing or not, just as he's starting to play well. And for Liverpool, that was always the case, remember? And I could make that case for almost anybody that's been missing significant, not just number of players, but the type of players. I mean, it's impossible to perform. We can talk about Liverpool if they had everybody healthy. Maybe that cycle of just that's urgency and the goal of winning everything is on the way down a little bit. And by the way, Liverpool, yesterday, yes, Darwin Núñez, who's been criticized that he needs 5 chances to score, did score. Gakpo scores another goal. That's very important. Diogo Jota gets his 2nd game under his belt. That's very important. Van Dijk coming back. And you see the results. That's not a coincidence that Liverpool all of a sudden started to look a little bit better and got 2 wins. You get key players back, that's what's going to happen, because those players are great players, and we've seen that before. This shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. But I do still think that Liverpool has to continue to prove that they're on the way back, because even in that win yesterday, I saw Liverpool that still wasn't pressing as well, and some of the things that made them so great were missing. So we'll see. But right now they have a chance because they have an extra game as well. By the time Newcastle play again, I mean, they could be at least even with them, I think, right? I can't remember them.
Yeah, I heard that as well, because of the weight that Newcastle have got. But let me just take Newcastle out of the picture right now. If I were to tell you it was going to be either Spurs or Liverpool that finish in the top 4 right now, who would you think that's going to be?
Liverpool are a better team than Spurs for a number of reasons that I've mentioned talking about Spurs. I just still don't think, somebody's got to come in there and shake them. And you think Antonio Conte could do that. But, I haven't seen it. They're so inconsistent, almost as if they didn't realize that they have a chance, or if they didn't want it. That's the impression I get from Spurs. So, I mean, if Liverpool continues to grow from strength to strength based on quality all around, Liverpool are the best team. But let's not forget, they're still behind. And, I'm still not 100% convinced that we're seeing the Liverpool of old.
That's our last question, and it goes back to Spurs. Is starting Hyun Minsan on the bench and then bringing him off the best way to get the best out of him right now?
Look, he has an off season. He was arguably the best player in the league last year, right? I'm not going to, I think, he could have taken Kulusevski or Son. I mean, when we saw them in Europe and the previous games, could have taken just about everybody with the exception of Harry Kane. So I mean, this has been done for him. He's come off the bench. Remember, this season he scored a hat-trick coming off the bench as well. But he's certainly not at his best. But that's, I think, a function of the entire team rather than just Heung-min Son. So I don't know if that's the best way. I'm sure he's going to say no. And I would say absolutely not. For me, Heung-min Son is still one of the top players in this league. And it just one of those off seasons after a great one.
Lovely stuff, Janusz. If you like this type of Premier League talk, make sure to catch us every Monday, because Janusz and I always talk about the Premier League and everything that we've seen over the weekend on PL Express. It usually drops at 9 Eastern on a Monday. Make sure to join us for that. We'll be doing it tomorrow. See you then.
See you then.